Now, the right time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNradio.com.
The NFL draft, we have way too much time to get ready for the NFL draft. The NBA draft sneaks up on you because it comes so quickly at the end of the season. They got to get them right into Summer League and everything else. Like, it's a blessing and curse, but we're already here, and I have not had enough time to overthink this draft. Like, it feels weird. The NFL, we just have all the time in the world to overthink it. We haven't had any time to overthink this one. And that's just so much more helpful when it comes time for the draft to come around if you want to follow along. Or I imagine if you're, like, involved in the drafting process. There's just not enough time for you to overthink this. Thank goodness. Now, Minnesota apparently has made their decision. There are reports that they have promised Karl-Anthony Towns that he will go number 1. He says he has not been promised that he will go number 1, but my guy Bill Plaschke of the LA Times said on Around the Horn today that Karl-Anthony Towns has not even gone in for a workout with the Lakers, that the Lakers wanted Towns to come in for a workout. Towns did not come in for a workout. And I got to say, I don't really, understand what kind of agent Karl-Anthony Towns has. Because I can't speak for you, okay? I don't know about you. But you're giving me a choice. Play for the sorry Timberwolves or play for the sorry Lakers. I'm playing for the sorry Lakers. Play for the champion Timberwolves or play for the sorry Lakers. I'm playing with the sorry Lakers. Play with Andrew Wiggins in Minnesota. Play with Jordan Clarkson in L.A. I'm playing with Jordan Clarkson in L.A. I'm doing that every single time. So they say, Karl-Anthony Towns, I told you a little bit about it the other day. He did a workout with the Timberwolves where apparently he wowed them. I mean, he made 71 out of 100 three-pointers from the NBA line in that workout. I mean, that's a big deal for a guy that size who we see as someone who can protect the rim. That's huge. And you have to applaud that man for having the pride to go out there and do his best in his workout for Minnesota. Because if I was him, I'd have gone in that workout with Minnesota, and I'd have been shaving points, if you know what I mean. I'd have given them every reason in the world not to draft me. Like, there's another big dude in the draft. Oh, yeah, man. I'd be in there talking about, man, Emeka's such a good guy. I mean, I remember in the AAU circuit after games, he'd be out there working on his drop step after games. Me, man, I'd be out back with my homeboy smoking Black and Milds. I mean, what can I say? He had to work that hard. Not me. I'm just out here coasted on my natural athletic ability. Wink. Wink. That's the way I would be playing it, because I'm trying to go play for the Lakers. Think about this. The difference between being drafted number 2 and number 3. Yes, I understand that in the state of California, they tax the hell out your check, right? I get that part. But if you could go play for the sorry Lakers or you could go play for the sorry Sixers, which one of those are you trying to do? I'm trying to go play for the sorry Lakers. I'd have been in that workout with the Timberwolves, shaving points if I was Karl-Anthony Towns, and I'd have been going at it in that Lakers workout like you'd never seen. It'd have been a brand new me. You'd have had no idea what in the world that you would have seen. I can't imagine that there's anything in the world that I would have approached with the same level of focus that I would approach a Lakers workout, given everything else that could happen to you in this draft. Because do you realize how much fun it has to be to play for the Lakers? One thing I do feel like fans often ignore, and people who cover sports, although the people who are really around teams have a great handle on this, which is the misery that surrounds losing teams. You know what it's like when you go out and you play pickup ball and you play 3 or 4 games and you just lose 3 or 4 games. You know how bad that feels? Imagine getting on a plane so you could go somewhere and land and lose those games. Right? You just going coast to coast, out there looking like the Washington Generals. Imagine how miserable that has to feel. The Knicks, what'd the Knicks go this year? 17-65. They lost 65 games. 65 games. Can you imagine what that's like? Just getting beat, dragged by all these different teams, getting dragged by teams that you know aren't good, just repeatedly getting dragged. Like, I recognize the misery that comes with being on a loser, so I'm not saying that a guy should completely ignore, like, a chance at winning. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I'd want to play for the Lakers. Now, if you need something to give you an appropriate reflection of how good it is to play for the Lakers, and the telephone number is 888-729-3776. How good is it to play for the Lakers? I don't know a lot of what Sasha Vujacic did when he played for the Lakers, like on the floor. The only really clear Sasha Vujacic memory I have with him at the Lakers was, you remember he used to get into it with Goran Dragic all the time? It appeared they had some beef from the old country. Right. They got old country beef. So anyway, it was in the playoffs, and they squared off a couple of times. Like, they didn't fight, but they made it clear, you know, to all the people back in the old country that they ain't letting it slide, right? Sasha Vujacic, of whom I have no definitive NBA memory, got engaged to Maria Sharapova. You think that's happening if he doesn't play for the Lakers? Because I don't. Do you think that happens if he does not play for the Lakers? Because I do not. You can be that dude on the Lakers, and you could wind up engaged to Maria Sharapova. I'm not exactly sure what happens if you wind up playing for the Timberwolves, but, like, I don't even think you got a chance at Sheila E., bruh, Wendy, or Lisa. None of them. They're not trying to hear it at all. No. Let me go play for the fun team. Like, when I'm young, like, being young, that's a little bit too early to be worried about, like, building championships and your legacy and everything else. That's what free agency is for. Right? You can worry about that at a different point in time. There's plenty of time for you down the line to go out here and get you some W's. Like, you have a chance. But to be young and, like, you know, irresponsible, you only really get away with that when you're young. Let me go be young and irresponsible with the Lakers. Now, you got to have a certain level of maturity for you, though, if you're going to play for the Lakers when you're 19, though. Like, if you're 19, 20 years old, you're going to play for the Lakers, you do have to have a certain level of responsibility about yourself, because L.A. will swallow you alive. L.A. has swallowed a lot of people alive. It's something we really haven't talked that much about, because the Clippers are just sorry. So when somebody's sorry for the Clippers, we just assume that they were just ordained to be sorry. But since the Lakers are never in the lottery, you ever see what L.A. did to poor Sly Stone? When was the last time they asked Sly Stone to come to some award show, man? L.A. ate Sly Stone alive, bruh. Alive. It's just a big old animal. It's a big old monster. But let me be on the Lakers. You're going to drop me off on the Lakers when I was 15. I'd turned into a child star. Like I was on Different Strokes or something like that. Whatever. I live that life. That's cool. Yeah. No way. You go play for the Timberwolves. I'd have been in the Timberwolves. Like, I'd have been back talking Flip Saunders. I'd have asked Flip Saunders. I'd have been like, hey, Flip. One time Rasheed Wallace said that you were the biggest bleeping coward he had ever met in his life. Are you still a big bleeping coward? That's the sort of thing I would have asked him. I'd have been there like, hey, so, you know, before we even get to this draft thing, I don't know what number Andrew Wiggins wears, but can I have that number? I mean, if I can't have that, can I have number 21? Oh, KG has number 21. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that you guys were the sort of franchise that held on to old news like that. My bad. I thought we were building for the future. Oh, wow. Kevin Garnett sitting right over there. Isn't that something? Y'all keep the old news around. Hey, what can I say? When a franchise is as much tradition as the Minnesota Timberwolves, I can't blame you. Like, that's the way I'd be talking when I went in there for my workout. I would have them I would do something like this. You know why Shaq wound up wearing Reebok, among a number of reasons? Shaq did his tour when he was looking for a shoe company at the Nike factory wearing a Reebok hat. That's the kind of stuff I would do in my workout with the Minnesota Timberwolves. You know what I walk around there in fact? I would go work out in a Stephon Marbury Minnesota Timberwolves throwback. That's exactly what I would do. That's what I would work out in. I'd be talking to Flip Saunders. Like, yeah, my favorite basketball memory is that time LeBron James put up 48 points in Game 5 of the 2007 Eastern Conference Finals against the Pistons. You remember that? Oh, you were there. I forgot.
Bomani.
Kevin Love opted out of his contract. this is really not that big of a deal. It's seen in the eyes of many as being a formality because it puts him in a situation where he can get more money for this year. Now, the question is whether or not he wants a long-term deal or he wants to try to go short run to try to bank on the salary cap jumping up in 2016, assuming everything goes well. I don't know what he's going to do. I do know this. If the only reason that he would sign with the Cleveland Cavaliers is to win a championship, don't you want to go play somewhere where you look a little bit happier? Hey, for all I know, Kevin Love is having the time of his life in Cleveland, but it doesn't look like he is. Like, that situation, that setup, it doesn't look like he is. Maybe he doesn't want to be the number 3 man. He might be in a Peter Tosh sort of situation where Peter Tosh is in the Whalers. The quote before they broke up was, let's say, Ja did not put Ty on this earth to be a backup singer for Bob Marley. You know? Maybe Ja did not put Kevin Love on this earth to be a backup singer for Kyrie Irving. Like, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I do know this. The Celtics are interested in him. Now, the Celtics have probably blown this. Kelly Olynyk, you may recall, pulled Kevin Love's arm out of socket, although Dennis Rodman did wind up playing for the Bulls at some point, so bygones can be bygones in the right situation. The other thing worth remembering there is that now, apparently, Boston has tried to pitch itself to Kevin Love as being part of a big three that involves Robin Lopez and Paul Pierce. That strategy is not going to work. That's not gonna do it. No. That strategy, not really a good look. That's not a big three. That's not even 1 and 2 possibles. That's just 2 dudes on the team. Like, if that's our big three, who are the little 9 at the other end of the bench? Now, we all know what the selling point for Kevin Love going to play for the Celtics is, right? We're not going to lie about this. We know what the selling point is. You can be the king. You can be the guy that they have been waiting to come for just about 25 years. You can be that guy. You remember where he took that visit to Boston last summer? He just went and hung around there, and he's walking around getting all the love. I cannot think of a place that would be happier to have a successful Kevin Love than Boston would be. All right? If I'm Kevin Love, I go do that. I don't care how good they are. I don't care how good they aren't. That's where I'm going. All right? Let's be honest here. Kevin Love has learned to endure some losing, and he got a taste of winning. And you know what? It's possible that winning might be just a little bit overrated. For some guys, it is. Some guys get into a winning situation, but it isn't the right situation for them. Winning's just a little bit overrated. Just a little bit. If I'm Kevin Love, so we add Kevin Love to the Celtics, right? I mean, in the East, that makes the Celtics a 50-win team. I think we'd all agree, right? That would make them about a 50-win team. You had a couple of other little things, and you got a team that could compete for the East, because just about anybody can compete for the East, right? So you can compete for the East. I mean, that's what you're going to be doing in Cleveland, competing for the East, standing out there waiting on somebody to give you the ball so maybe you can shoot a 3. Hey, man, if that's how you want to live the best years of your life, you do what you do, Playboy. I mean, like, I can't tell you what should or should not make you happy if you're Kevin Love. And I personally would not want to live in Boston. I'm not so acclimated to this cold. Like, that's not really the life that I'm about. But, I mean, if you're the type that wants to be treated like the man, go to Boston, Kevin Love. Go to Boston. Have the time of your life. Who knows? Maybe you can find a way to get down there with the Lakers. The Lakers have a lot of pluses. You can live a pretty good life there, right? You might have more fun in L.A. You're a West Coast sort of guy. But nobody's going to love your dirty draws like they are in Boston, young man. Nobody's going to love your dirty draws like they do in Boston. And I have to tell you, in my general experience, it's probably in your best interest, if you at all can, to find somebody who does, in fact, love your dirty draws. Like, once somebody shows that level of dedication, it's kind of hard to replace. It really is. Cut you all kinds of slack and everything else. You go ahead and do that. You think about this for a second. You saw what America did for Delhi. You saw the way America got charged up for Delhi. He's not even good. You realize they're about to make a movie based on Delhi? That's what America did for Delhi. If America did that for Delhi, and he ain't even from around here, what you think Boston's going to do for Kevin Love? Yeah, that's right. Go live the good life, even if you got to wear a thick jacket so that you're able to endure it. Sorry. At that age, that's too young to be thinking about legacy. I say that as a 34-year-old man. 26, 25, whatever it is, too young to be thinking about legacy.
Bomani.
All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including our next guest. He is ESPN's NBA front office insider. He also has the most insufferable taste in rap music of anybody that I know. His name is Amin Elhassan. Amin, what's going on?
Hey, you know what? I was actually going to say something nice about your bumper music. You're playing some 2 words on the intro. I said, finally, Bomani's trying to figure this rap thing out, and then you got to make that comment.
See, okay, then you were going to do that anyway, though. I know you. You were going to do that anyway.
And no comment.
It's cool, man. Look, the draft is here. It sounds like Karl-Anthony Towns is going number 1. If you were in charge of a front office, would Jahlil Okafor go number 2?
It would no. D'Angelo Russell would be my guy, if I'm the Lakers or if I'm the Sixers or, quite frankly, even if I were the Knicks. If D'Angelo Russell's on the board, that's the guy I'm taking for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously, this is a guard-dominating league, and Russell, people say, oh, you get guards anywhere. We don't get 6'5" guards anywhere, 6'5" point guards who play like he does, who shoot like he does, and who have such a natural feel and flow for the game. The other reason is I think there are some big question marks about Okafor. He's obviously a very skilled offensive player. Defensively, he's terrible everywhere. He's not a rim protector. He's not a good guard in the pick and roll. He's not a good defensive rebounder, which is the bare minimum you can ask of someone who's 7 feet tall. And then the other thing is, because offensively everything he does around the basket, you're basically saying the other big I play with him has to not only be a good enough defender to make up for his deficiencies, but also has to be able to shoot the ball. So, to space the floor. And so when you start looking at the universe of stretch fours who are also great defenders, there's like a couple of guys on that list. And a few of them are in this draft right now. So I just think it makes life a little too difficult in terms of roster construction if you take Jahlil Okafor. That's why I like Russell over him.
So you're on board with the Towns thing, though, at number 1, it sounds like.
Oh, no, there's no doubt in my mind. He is far and away, head and shoulders better than anybody else in the draft. For every reason that I just described about Okafor, what I don't like about him, Towns answers all those questions. So he is a great defensive player. He is a very good defensive rebounder and shot blocker. And then on the offensive end, he can score inside, but more importantly, he can score outside. I was talking with a lot of other draft prognosticators over the last couple of days, and we're chuckling because some pundits are asking, well, can he shoot from the outside? And before he went to college, that's what he was known for. He was a stretch big. He shot threes. He never played inside. And Coach Cal was really the guy who forced him to play back to the basket, play traditional big man style. And he got a lot better during the year, but he got so good at it that a year later people are sitting around asking, well, he's good inside, but can he make a jump shot? That's the least of his concerns.
All right, talking to Amin Elhassan of ESPN. We're at this, the draft comes around, and we wind up with the same problem every year with players from other countries. It's really not a problem for people in the NBA front offices, I don't think, but at least for observers, we've never seen any of those guys play. Having worked in a front office, how different is the evaluation process for international players?
It depends on where they're coming from. So guys like Porzingis and Hezonja, they both played in the ACB. This is the best level of basketball not in the NBA in the world. So these are real, it's a tough schedule playing against grown men. Many of them could be NBA players if they chose to do so. And so their evaluation process is not that different from that of a collegiate player. You're watching their games. You're going to go scout a couple of times to go see them live. And I don't see any difference there. Now, their stats, the translation isn't the same. For instance, assists in Europe are very heavily kind of discounted. So a guy who averages 3 assists in Europe, he's a really good playmaker, But other than that, all the eye test, all of the research you do is easy. For a guy like Mudiay who played in China, it's a lot harder because the level of play in the Chinese league is different. The pace of play is different. And then obviously the statistics, you see gaudy stats from guys like Lester Hudson, who was the 15th man on the Clippers, averaged like 30 points a game in China. So the Chinese leagues, the smaller European leagues, like where Giannis Antetokounmpo came from, Division II Greece, those are harder to evaluate. But if you're coming from the ACB, if you're coming from a EuroLeague team, it's not that difficult for us to evaluate.
All right, we're talking to Amin Elhassan of ESPN. And what do you think about those two gentlemen that you mentioned? I get their names wrong every time, so I don't want to do it to them on the radio.
Yeah, so, Porzingis is a Latvian kid. He played for Sevilla in Spain. He is, remember we talked about it's really rare to find a stretch four who can defend. He might be one of those guys. He's an excellent shooter from the outside. He's very athletic. He's a very good shot blocker. He is a little bit on the thin side. He needs to beef up and get stronger to be able to bang it down low. But he should be able to give you some pretty good defensive contributions, on the outset as a 7'1" guy with a 7'4" wingspan and great athleticism. And then on the offensive end, he can shoot the ball. And as we know, shooting is at an all-time premium in our league. Hezonja is different. He's a wing. He's a big wing. He's 6'8". He can put the ball on the floor. He's very athletic. He's a very good shooter. But he's a little bit, I won't call him a head case, but he's cocky on the borderline of delusional. And my guy Chad Ford had the best comparison for him. He's like J.R. Smith a little bit. He's got all the talent in the world, but his cockiness, his attitude, and by default, his shot selection and decision making can get in the way of his development to being a very good NBA player.
All right, talking to Amin Elhassan of ESPN. Outside of those top 5 or 6 guys, is there any name that jumps out to you in this draft?
Oh, I mean, not as far as like franchise players, but there are a bunch of guys I think will be really good pros. One of the guys is R.J. Hunter from Georgia State. He's a great shooter. I know a lot of people are going to look at his stats. So the guy shot 29% from three. How can he be a great shooter? Well, he was put in a situation where he had to be the star of his team. He's not a star caliber player. He's the kind of guy, he gets on the right team, he fills the role very well because he's an excellent shooter. He's a smart player. And if you ask him to do the things that he's capable of doing, I think he can be very good at it. Trey Lyles from Kentucky, he played out of position all year long. He's really a power forward, but he had to play on the wing for Kentucky because they have this embarrassment of riches of talent. I think on the next level, he'll be able to take advantage of his quickness and his skill level as a power forward, and he'll be pretty good. And then, if we're going, you know what, Sam Decker. I'll throw Sam Decker in there. I liked him a lot coming out of high school. I didn't like the fact that he went to Wisconsin because I knew he wouldn't look good for however long he was going to be there. He's really skilled. He's got great size. The big thing about him is he a shot maker from the perimeter? If he's not, then he turns into Derek McKee, a good guy to have around. If he is a shot maker, then he might have all-star type potential.
All right, last question for Amin Elhassan, and I asked this because you mentioned R.J. Hunter and the role he had to play at Georgia State, and we talked about this before. Can you explain to people what it was like trying to evaluate Stephen Curry with that Davidson team that he played with?
Right. So for us, we saw him obviously his first year. He was incredible. His second year, that was the year they went to the Elite Eight, and he was a shooting guard. Terrific. And then his third year, he was point guard. And a lot of people say, well, he's not that good. But we saw him make plays that were Steve Nash-esque. That was our nickname for him. Our code name for him was Black Nash because we thought he was every bit the playmaker that Steve was at that same level of play. The problem was his teammates were so trash that they would miss gimmies. So he averaged like 6 assists a game, but really he should have been averaging about 10 assists a game. And we called those missed assists because guys would miss layups or not catch the ball. We called them Lovedales after there's a teammate of his named Andrew Lovedale, who had a pretty good career internationally, but obviously for our purposes, not a prospect. But every time, we'd see somebody mess up a wide open layup or fumble a pass, we said, oh, yeah, how did Curry do tonight? We had 7 assists and he had about 5 Lovedales.
All right, Amin Elhassan, before I let you go, man, what you listening to these days? I'm just curious.
You know what? I heard the A$AP Rocky album.
Now, all right, doesn't nobody care what Amin's listening to. Hate Hard.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Bomani.
Amin touched on this a second ago where he said that if he had the pick at number 2, if he were the Lakers, that he would take D'Angelo Russell with that pick rather than take Okafor. I was a little disappointed that he said that because he kind of stole my thunder. I was going to say the same exact thing. Like, hey, man, Russell, now, you don't want to be eye test guy in this era where we have all these statistics and these metrics to give us indicators of what players are or are not going to be, right? Like, I want to be on the side of the smart people. I want to be going in the direction that the smart people do. The problem is very often those dorks go places that are just not very fun to me, right? No disrespect to the dorks, right? I'm friends with a lot of dorks. It's okay if you're a dork. Like, there's a place for dorks, you know? And you can do dorky things. I just don't quite exist in the same space as the dorks, but I hang out with a lot of them. Anyway, I don't even know what the dorks say about Russell. I don't. I do know that there were questions raised as to, regardless of how effective Okafor was at Duke, whether or not Duke was better when he was not on the floor versus when he was on the floor. And in that Final Four weekend when they won it, they didn't win it by riding Okafor, right? But Russell, that there is a star. Like, we'll see how good he is at basketball, but that right there is a star. We talked to him on Highly Questionable a couple of days ago. I think it's already run, but I'm not sure. We tape a lot of those interviews, so I often forget whether or not they've actually run. But in talking to Russell, in terms of immaturity and everything else, on top of the fact that he's a 6'5" combo guard, that's the kind of guard it feels like you need in this day and age, right? Because that's a guy that if you want to go small, having the 6'5" guy at small forward is not a bad look, right? It's not a bad thing to have. But I feel like I saw enough of him at Ohio State, and he shot well enough from the college three-point line for me to feel like I'm not passing on that dude if I'm number 2. I'm especially not passing on that dude at number 2 if I'm the Lakers. Because, look, man, Kobe is not actually going to play a lot of basketball this year. Like, we do understand that, right? I find that you Kobe disciples have a difficult time reconciling the idea that Kobe Bryant is, in fact, a human being. Right? He's a person. He's got a lot of miles on the odometer. And when's the last time Kobe Bryant ended a season without the end coming via injury? It's been a while, all right? You're not going to get a lot out of that. And the Lakers have an issue, which is the Lakers have this television deal that, you know, they kind of need people to watch because they're getting all that money for the television deal. They've also got seats that they need to fill up. And see, the thing with the Lakers is the Lakers have been so consistently good for so long that we've never really had a situation where you got a true test of fans' loyalty and their willingness to continue to come to games. The Lakers have missed the playoffs 6 times since they moved to Los Angeles. That's it. 6, all right? They don't have a lot of tests on what happens if they lose. It started getting bad last year. People stopped wanting to come watch that team play. That's something they've never truly had to consider as a franchise. Without Kobe, who are people coming to watch? Because the only stretch of time in my life that the Lakers have not had a Hall of Fame player was what? 1992 through 1996? Is that it? Like, that's all I can remember. Because they've had Kareem since 1975. They had West past 72. I can't remember if it's through 73 or 74, but you get my point. There's always been a draw. There's always been somebody to watch. I don't think that people are showing up to watch Emeka Okafor. Jahlil Okafor. Getting to that point now where I'm turning into my dad, and anybody with a last name, any first name could wind up getting matched up. All right. Anyway, I don't think that people are showing up just to go see Jahlil Okafor play. I don't think so. I think that there will be a time when people show up to see D'Angelo Russell play. Like, I think there's a value in having a star. There's something to be said for having that guy. And look, in this draft, he's that guy. He's that one. He's the guy that you see on television. You're like, yo, watch that dude, right? He's the dude that you see in interviews, and you're like, yo, we got to keep an eye on that cat. That's who he is. Okafor, I think the comparison I saw for him today is something I was reading. I apologize, I can't remember what it was, so I can't cite it, but this wasn't, I didn't come up with this by myself, was Al Jefferson. And so in Al Jefferson, what you have is a big guy, a dude in that 7-foot range with great post moves, an incredibly refined post game. He's just not going to give you a lot on defense. He's not going to give you a lot past the basket. He's not. That's it. Are you taking Al Jefferson with the number 2 pick? Because I don't think Al Jefferson is the number 2 pick. And that's what I think you've got there, is Al Jefferson. Now, you'd like to have Al Jefferson on your team, don't get me wrong. Like, if somebody winds up with Okafor, I think that they'll be pleased. It just won't be number 2 pick in the draft level of pleased. You're not going to get that. But I'll ask you this question about Okafor. Would you rather a player, and I need you to imagine the comparative guy at his best. You'll know the time I'm talking about. Would you rather a player with Roy Hibbert's defensive upside or a player with Jahlil Okafor's offensive upside? Which would you rather have? Like, which of those two is most important? Because the thing that does worry me about Okafor is something that Amin Elhassan pointed out when he was on with us, is he can't get out there on the perimeter and guard guys. And if teams go small, Okafor is good enough on offense to punish teams that'll try to guard him with a small guy. But those possessions late in games, like you remember when Roy Hibbert was out of that game against the Heat? I think it was game 1 against Miami. And Roy Hibbert was out of that game because he would not have been able to close out on a 3-point shooter. That's going to be Jahlil Okafor's, like, entire career. Is that the direction that you want to go in right now? I don't know. But if you got a guy that size that's not giving you the defense, you got to be able to pair a rim-protecting power forward with him. But the problem is, what happens if that rim-protecting power forward has to guard somebody on the perimeter, because Okafor just can't go out there and do that? Like, if this is 10 or 15 years ago, Okafor is the number 1 pick. We're not thinking about anything else, and we're talking about him the way that we talked about Greg Oden when Greg Oden came out as like the next great center. We're putting up graphics of Patrick Ewing and Akeem Olajuwon and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and David Robinson and Shaq. Like, we're talking about all those guys if this is 10 years ago and Okafor is the same exact guy. Because Okafor does have something that you just can't teach. Like, you hate to be the cliche guy talking about that. You just can't teach those things. Okafor has something that you cannot teach that I feel like it's underestimated when we start talking about evaluating guys like him. Like, with him, we talk about his refined game and everything else, but there's also this other thing, hands. His hands are so good. Think about how many great players, like, it's coming out of high school, but you'll understand what I mean. Think about how many guys that you heard so much about coming out of high school, for those of you who follow that, and how good they were going to be as big men, and then they got to college and you realize his hands are awful. And I don't think that there's anything that you can do to teach somebody how to have better hands. Like, that's just not really how it works. Okafor's got those hands, those suction cup type hands. Like, I think he'll become a decent rebounder, if for no other reason than pretty much anything he gets his hands on is his. And you're not getting around him if he boxes out. So Amin made a point about him as a defensive rebounder. I think he can improve as a defensive rebounder. Like, you'll have a hard time making me think that he'll turn into Kevin Duckworth, where he's a guy that size that just can't be a defensive rebounder. You know, like, I think that he'll be able to be a defensive rebounder. I just take D'Angelo Russell. I'll take the guy that I feel more confident is going to be a star if I have a pick at number 2. And I think that Okafor can be really good. I'm not sure I see star.
Bomani.
You may have heard these reports that the Texans were talking to the Broncos about trading for Peyton Manning. Or more accurately, the Broncos were talking to the Texans about it. Had a lot of people say that this isn't true. Had a lot of people say they've got sources who say that it is in fact true. I am more inclined to believe that it is true than not, and the reason that I am more inclined to believe it is true than not is the fact that the Broncos asked Peyton Manning to take a pay cut in the first place. Look, pay cut got to have a hammer behind it. Otherwise, you're asking a question that you already know the answer to. You know? So, you come ask me to take a pay cut, I don't have to take the pay cut. I ain't taking no pay cut, right? Peyton Manning, either way it goes, wound up taking a $4 million pay cut for the Broncos this year. But listen to this, all right? This is from Mike Kliss, I believe it is, of 9 News Denver. He said the Broncos were never going to let Peyton Manning go. However, they asked him to take a $10 million pay cut. A $10 million pay cut. Now, I imagine that when they asked him to take the $10 million pay cut, they asked Peyton's agent and they didn't ask him. I don't even think Tom Condon even called Peyton Manning and told him about that. Like, if I'm Peyton Manning's agent, why would I call him and tell him that? All it's going to do is make him mad. The answer is no. Like, I don't need to double check on that one. The answer is no on the $10 million pay cut. That being said, he was asked to take a $10 million pay cut. I bring this up now for 2 reasons, right? Reason number 1, and the telephone number is 888-729-3776. Reason number 1 that I bring this up. If you are sold on Peyton Manning coming into this season, you do realize that you are more confident in him than the people who are paying him his salary, right? Like, if you are an observer of the Denver Broncos, if you are a fan of the Denver Broncos, how confident do you feel in Peyton Manning, given the lack of confidence that your front office seems to have demonstrated as it relates to him? You got anything? Because they don't sound like they like where this is going. Do you feel like you like where this is going for the Broncos? Because they don't seem to. And who knows, maybe there are a lot of guys that believe they should start the Brock Osweiler era right now. I don't know. Like, I think in a vacuum, yes, you should start the Brock Osweiler era right now. And what I mean by that is, I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with a quarterback with the lack of arm strength that Peyton Manning has demonstrated in the last couple of years. I just don't think you can. So if you can't win a Super Bowl with your old quarterback, you start seeing what's up with the new young quarterback. In a vacuum. I say in a vacuum because you can't just kick Peyton Manning to the curb. I don't care if he's only been in Denver for 3 years or not. Like, if you kick Peyton Manning to the curb, you better have Aaron Rodgers. Because that's how it worked out in Green Bay. It worked out okay because they had Aaron Rodgers. Like, if you don't have Aaron Rodgers, you just can't tell Peyton Manning to kick rocks in a situation where he could wind up on another team and play well. Like, it worked out okay for the Packers also because Favre went to the Jets and then Favre got hurt and they sputtered down to the end of that season. You know, it got a little awkward when he wound up in the division, but you get the point that I'm making. That if you're going to send a legendary figure out of there after a regular season where we would all have to agree Peyton Manning played pretty well, he wasn't as good as he was the year before. The year before was just insane, right? But the numbers that Peyton Manning put up last year, he still threw the ball. I hate people who do that, and I did it myself. He still threw for almost 300 yards a game, right? It's 4,700 yards for the season. He still threw 39 touchdown passes, right? I just don't think you can win a Super Bowl with him. But you can't just tell him to kick rocks. You just can't. But here's the number 2 thing that I find interesting about the Broncos asking Peyton Manning to take a $10 million pay cut before he settled on taking a $4 million pay cut. They'll do it to anybody, man. They will do it to anybody. Like, if you are an NFL player, you got to look up. If you're young and still naive about how the game goes, they asked Peyton Manning to take a $10 million pay cut. Don't think for a second that any of this stuff can't happen to you. Because if it can happen to that dude, it can happen to anybody. Now, yes, we got a long list of guys that have been chased off teams. And, you know, other than John Elway or Dan Marino, and Dan Marino kind of got forced out in a way. This is kind of what it is for just about anybody in this league. This is pretty much how it goes. But still, it's Peyton Manning. It's still Peyton Manning. Now, if/when that day comes with the Patriots, for example, right? I don't think that one would be too shocking to anyone because the Patriots have demonstrated that they'll do it to anybody. Like, that's just how we look. It's Bill Belichick. This is just what it's going to be. Ain't nothing really emotional about that one. The Broncos are treating Peyton Manning like he's been there forever. Like he's been, like he got in and immediately got the treatment like he's been a local icon, right? He already got that. If they'll do that to him, they'll do that to just about anybody in that league. And the reality is, if you're in charge in the front office, you should. This is what it is. This is how this game goes. You got to make these moves quickly. Quickly. Let me tell you something else about having Peyton Manning as your quarterback, right? Now, say you can't win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. And again, I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. But I do think you can win 12 games with Peyton Manning. I think you can win, between 10 and 12. I think you can win with Peyton Manning as your quarterback, even if I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. I think you can win between 10 and 12. Let me tell you what you're not getting after you win 10 or 12 games. The kind of draft pick that's going to give you a chance to get that quarterback that, might be the next one. Right. So, having Peyton Manning stops you from getting the next Peyton Manning. That's how you wind up. Well, not that the Chiefs have had a Peyton Manning, but you don't want to wind up in a situation where you go 30 years without getting a quarterback in the first round of the draft, Now, my man Bob made a point about Peyton. He said Peyton got pushed out in Indy. Peyton got pushed out in Indy, but that was the rarest of circumstances, right? If there were no Andrew Luck in that draft and there were only Robert Griffin, and don't get revisionist. Robert Griffin as prospect coming into that draft was damn near the prospect that Luck was. The injuries changed things, but, never forget what a prospect Robert Griffin was coming out. If Robert Griffin had been in that draft and not Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning doesn't get forced out. It was only the idea that you had a once-a-25-year type of prospect that got Peyton Manning driven out of Indianapolis, right? This is different than that one. But I think we're both making the same point. If they'll do it to him, they'll do it to anybody. 888-729-3776. Let's talk to Derek in Nevada. Derek, thanks for calling the right time.
Hey, what's going on, Bomani? This whole Peyton Manning thing with the Broncos, it was nothing but a game of chicken, and Peyton Manning was the one that blinked, and I'll give you 3 reasons why. First off, they knew Peyton Manning. You can't just boot him out and tell him to kick rocks. You hit the nail on the head. However, you can give him a ridiculous pay cut, and if he accepts it, well, then at least you get a quarterback that's serviceable to go out and win you 12 games. But if he doesn't take it, then you can at least show Peyton Manning the door respectfully and go another direction. Secondly, Marius Thomas and Von Miller. Peyton Manning ain't a $20 million or a $15 million a year quarterback anymore, but you're going to have 2 cornerstones of the franchise that you're going to have to lock up after Peyton Manning leaves. And thirdly, this new scheme is not for Peyton Manning. The rollouts, the deep throws down the field, it's more suited for somebody like a Brock Osweiler than it is a Peyton Manning. So even if this does work out, it's going to be Manning's last year because I can't see them continuing to go down this road with him.
Hey, Derek, that's a lot of good points, man, and I greatly appreciate the call. And that last point was a big one. This is not a Peyton Manning system that Gary Kubiak is putting in place. Elway made the decision on where to go without Peyton Manning in mind. That wasn't the guy that he had in mind. That was a decision made for the future because you don't bring in that offense and then go tell old man Peyton Manning with his trick neck, oh, yeah, go ahead and run this bootleg right fast. Let's run this stretch play over and over again.
Bomani.
There's a gossip item out. And I know a lot of you guys are like, I don't want too much TMZ in my sports. And that's fine. But this radio show ain't going to fill itself up. And it's at the time of the year where there's really nothing to talk about. So, TherezOwens.com. Yeah, I'm going to come out here and put my professional reputation on that. Anyway, they had a report that Dez Bryant did not attend DeMarco Murray's wedding. Apparently, Dez Bryant is still salty that DeMarco Murray chose to leave the Cowboys, even though it's a good chance Dez Bryant's about to leave the Cowboys for the same reason that DeMarco Murray left the Cowboys, which is paper, millions of dollars, right? So Dez Bryant did not go. But what I find to be interesting about that is that Dez Bryant's lady did go to the wedding. All right. So an RSVP was made. Somebody made a decision that they were going to the wedding. And at some point, Des Bryant just said, damn it, I ain't going. I just can't stand to be at that wedding. And he just said he wasn't going. I just want to know what the conversation is like with his lady when she looks at him and she's like, well, all right, then, I'm going. I already bought this dress. And now she's just at the wedding with no Des Bryant. And I got to say, I'm with her. Am I the only person out here, by the way, that just about anybody, you invite me to your wedding, you say there's an open bar, I'm there. I don't even have to like you that much. Like, if I can afford the travel and the time, I'm going. And when I say that I'm going if you have an open bar, I don't even drink. Like, I might drink at your wedding, but I'm probably not going to drink at your wedding. But if everybody else is drinking and happy, then I am in a good place. Like, you've got to be a really sour person to have a bad time at a wedding. It's really, really hard to have a bad time at a wedding. I'm showing up to the wedding. If I'm Des Bryant and my lady says she's going to DeMarco Murray's wedding and she's going without me, look here. You don't leave your woman around everybody. I understand that DeMarco Murray is getting married, and I ain't making no accusations, and, it would take, a lot to be that dude on your wedding day, but I'm just telling you that I personally would prefer that my lady not be unaccompanied in that setting. That is just me. I'm not even necessarily the jealous type. I just don't need there to be any reason that I have to fall out with one of my friends. I just prefer to avoid those sorts of situations. No reason for me to have to fall out with one of my friends. Like, I give you an example. I think I may have told this story on the show one time, but my brother is 13 years older than me, and I enjoy stories of his childhood because I was not there because obviously he's 13 years older than me. Anyway, parents got a friend, and one of the friends, my brother, wound up threatening to hit one of my father's friends in the solar plexus when he was a very, very young boy. And I asked him when he was an adult why he threatened to hit this man in the solar plexus, and his response was, I personally felt that man was coming over to see my mama too much when my daddy wasn't around. Now, my father and that gentleman have remained very good friends to this day. They're still real cool. They're still real close. But you have to admit, a situation like that, you might fall out with your homeboys. The best bet for not falling out with your homeboys, how about you just stop coming over here to the house when I'm not here? Like, why don't we just do things that make it more likely that our friendship can endure? For that reason, I don't care how mad I am at DeMarco Murray. I'm coming to his wedding, and I'm drinking up at his open bar. Because I imagine that open bar was pretty spectacular. And it is very, very rare that anybody invites you over in hopes that you will drink as much alcohol as possible. Only at weddings does that happen. Only at weddings. Like, you invite people over to your house, you'd prefer they not drink too much. Why? Because they might tear up your stuff. You never want them to tear up your stuff. They might tear up your stuff, right? You don't want that. But at a wedding, everybody's just happy. Everybody's just drinking. And Des Bryant, they jerking him around about his money and everything else. Man, you might as well go have yourself a good time. I'd have been up in there. Oh, wow. And just that fast on Twitter, somebody invited me to his wedding. He said he's getting married on Labor Day weekend in Pittsburgh and that it's open bar. Where does he send the invitation? If it wasn't in Pittsburgh. I have actually been at a wedding in Pittsburgh. I went to a wedding in Latrobe, Pennsylvania at the country club that Arnold Palmer plays at. And whoo, buddy, I hope I am never that drunk again in my life. Good gracious. I remember that country club forever because I looked up on the wall and I saw a picture of Tiger Woods. And seeing that picture of Tiger Woods is the only reason I did not feel like I was a pioneer, because I felt like I was the first.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Bomani.
Joining us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, he is the man to talk to about these international prospects that I'm honest enough to admit that I have never seen play. His name is Fran Fraschilla. Fran, how are you, sir?
Bomani, I can't wait for tomorrow night. Can you imagine if the New York Knicks take an international guy? I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn. I've been a Knicks fan my whole life. They may tear down the Barclays Center tomorrow night.
Well, you know this about the draft. The worst thing you can do for your fans is draft somebody they've never heard of, right?
Oh, yes, except if it's a guy named Pau Gasol or Dirk Nowitzki. But the problem is some of these international guys have not panned out in recent years. So we're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow night. I anticipate that when the Knicks do pick, that Okafor, Towns, and Russell will be off the board. So you got some really well-known college guys, but then you got these two international guys, or three really, because Emmanuel Mudiay, although he played high school basketball in Dallas, we consider him an international guy because he's from the Congo, and he spent this last year in China. So we're going to have a lot of intrigue tomorrow night.
All right, we're talking to Fran Fraschilla, and let's talk about these guys because I know a lot of people just are familiar with them. Kristaps Porzingis from Latvia is one guy that looks like he'll probably go in the top 5. Could you describe his game a little bit for people?
You know, he's unique. Now, everybody sees this guy, and he looks like an extra in the recent Dolph Lundgren movie, you know, but he's 7'2" in sneakers. He's 19 years old. He's got a sweet jump shot, very athletic. He's only 230 pounds, which sounds like a lot, but not when you're 7'2". So he's got to put some weight on. But this kid has a chance. I mean, there's certainly some things he's got to improve on, but he played in the second-best league in the world, Bomani, in Spain, you know, a league that's produced the Gasol brothers and Ricky Rubio and, you know, Serge Ibaka. So it's not like he's coming out of left field completely, but the fact that he is so tall, doesn't look like a player, it's kind of going to be fun because I do think my head tells me the Knicks are going to take him, and I think the kid's got a world of upside. He really does. It's going to be a little bit of time for him to fill out a little bit, but I think he's got a chance to be an outstanding player.
All right, now he played in ACB, which you just described as the second-best league in the world. For the listeners, I think, to kind of make sense of how good that is, how would that compare to NCAA Division I basketball at a high level?
See, I love that question. I really do. And I try to tell my friends, and I think I've been, you know, proven right about this. You know, right now, when you look at college basketball, we know all the guys. We know the Winslows and the Okafors and all the outstanding players that we watch all year. When you look at how few of those guys that are drafted in the first and second round really have an impact in the league, I describe it as AA baseball compared to the major leagues, the NBA. If you play in the Spanish ACB league and have good success, that's like, you know, being in AAA. So you're talking about a kid that, had he been in college as an 18, 19-year-old freshman with the skill set he has, I really do think that we would be considering him, not taking him number one, but at least considering him for the number one pick. And quite frankly, if he goes 4 or 5, there's not a lot of difference. I mean, I certainly would go with Okafor and Towns, but this kid would be right behind them. And because of the intrigue, and he's not on TV every single night, there's going to be that, you know, the real question marks, the buzz factor, if you will.
All right, we're talking to Fran Fraschilla. You mentioned Emmanuel Mudiay, who played his high school basketball in Dallas. He wound up playing in China. We talked to Amin Elhassan earlier, and he said that playing in China, it's a little more difficult to tell how good a player is based upon how he's done in China. What do you think about Mudiay coming into this draft?
Well, Amin is exactly right, and he knows this stuff cold, so he's exactly right. You know, China's a little different because, yes, they have guys we've heard of, Stephon Marbury, Sebastian Telfair, you know, guys like that. Wilson Chandler's been over there. But there's a drop-off. You've got a couple of American players who generally, you know, are the best players on the team, a couple of Chinese national team-type players, that are your third and fourth best players. And then the rest of the team are basically mid-major and low-major college-type guys. So there is a difference. And the beauty of what Emmanuel Mudiay went through, Bomani, is that although he was hurt and only played 12 games, he was on a team that had good veteran leadership, including Yi Jianlin. Will Bynum was also on the team, who ended up his season with the Wizards. So he got a taste, if not from the competition because he only played 12 games, he did get a taste of professional basketball because he was on a team with veteran players. And in checking with my Chinese friends who coach over there, and I actually know some of the guys on that team, they did not want a 19-year-old point guard last September leading them. By the time Emmanuel left in early March, when he got healthy, they were impressed with the young man's maturity, and so they gave him the thumbs up. And teams know that in the league. He's going to go probably in the first 6 or 7. He didn't hurt himself that much, although some people a year ago thought he could go number 1.
Well, why do teams seem to value D'Angelo Russell more than they value Mudiay?
That's a great question. Part of it is the recency bias that you see D'Angelo every night. But I would say this. I don't think it's necessarily that Emmanuel Mudiay slipped. I just think that a guy like Karl Towns, for example, D'Angelo Russell had a tremendous year. We automatically, those of us who follow the college game, thought that there was a good chance that Okafor and Mudiay would be 1 and 2 in this draft. But as it turns out, 2 international guys came out of nowhere besides Mudiay, Hazonia Porzingis. Russell, who I love, I think he's the best passer that I've seen come into an NBA draft in a decade. And then we didn't anticipate that Karl Towns would make the jump from ESPN's number 9 high school player to potentially the top player in this draft. So it was more about other guys stepping up their games and less about not seeing Emmanuel Mudiay because he was in China.
All right, got one more question for Fran Fraschilla of ESPN, talking about the international players in the NBA draft. Mario Hezonja, did I pronounce his name correctly? We've been going through that now during the commercial break.
Pretty close. Hazonia. Not bad.
Hazonia.
Yeah, Mario Hezonja, Super Mario.
Now, what's going on with him?
Well, I got to be careful how I say this because he reminds me of a young J.R. Smith, okay? In that, well, hear me out now. He's the only guy in this draft, realistically, that could win both an NBA dunk contest and an NBA three-point shooting contest. He's that talented. But in all seriousness, he is a 6'8", 2-guard, could play small forward, obviously, as well. Tremendous athlete, tremendous shooter, incredible competitor, which sometimes gets him in trouble, but a very talented player who has had some monster games in the ACB, the league we talked about earlier. And he's a guy that, let me tell you about him. When Zach LaVine won the dunk contest at the NBA All-Star Weekend, the very next day at a Barcelona practice, this guy went out and did the same dunks at practice. He wanted to be able to show people, you think that's good? I got some stuff too. So it's going to be very interesting. I think he's going to go in the top 6. So you could potentially in this draft have 3 international players go in the top 6 or 7, which is very unusual.
Fran Fraschilla, he's the man to talk to about the international prospects in the NBA draft. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
A pleasure, Bomani. Thanks.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Weeknights from 9 to 11 Eastern or on demand at ESPNradio.com.